Hello everyone, welcome to another Voice Essentials Hangout, and welcome to those of you who are watching this as a replay. It's always good to know that you're catching up with the show, despite the fact that for many of you it's hard to watch the show live. So it is good to have you join in, albeit after the fact. We love having you enter into the conversation. So if you are watching this show as a replay, then please join in the conversation by leaving your comments in the comments section below the video. Of course, hello to all of you who are watching the show live. It is so good to be spending the next 40 minutes or so with you. We don't have a special guest today. As you know, we do these live hangouts every Monday, Australian Eastern Standard Time at 2 p.m. And every second week we have a special guest. And haven't we had some of the most amazing singing teachers from across the globe join us during 2018? It really has been. I have felt really honoured to for some of the world's leading vocal pedagogues to join us here on Voice Essentials. And it's been such a wonderful privilege for me to get to know them and to, in turn, introduce them to you. Many of them, as you know, are not on YouTube regularly, and I think it's something that we do fall into the trap of thinking that the best singing teachers in the world are on YouTube, and that isn't necessarily the case. A lot of the best singing teachers are too busy to be having a YouTube channel. So it's good to introduce them to you and for you to be able to partake in their knowledge and their expertise. We have another special guest next week, Dr. Shannon Coates. In fact, Dr. Coates joined us a number of months ago, and she'll be joining us again in a couple of weeks. She is like Michelle last week. Michelle is a scream. Dr. Shannon Coates is just, she's cut from the same stone. She is a laugh minute, but also an incredible pedagogue. She hails from Canada, and I am very much looking forward to welcoming her onto the show for the second time in 2018. So I hope you'll join us next week for that. Later this week, in a couple of days, I'll be flying down to Adelaide. Adelaide is right down sort of in the middle bottom part of Australia, and I'll be down there for the Australian Voice Association, what's called the national meeting. It's a day symposium, I guess, and we are welcoming Leader Scarce to the seminar, and as our keynote, an American singing voice specialist. I am very excited. I think I'm going to be very, very fanboy about it. And I'm going to try to contain myself because I am on the board for the Australian Voice Association, so I don't want to get too carried away, but it is very exciting to have Leda come down to Australia and share of her knowledge and expertise with the wider Australian voice care professional community. AVA, the Australian Voice Association, is a multidisciplinary association, so it includes ear, nose and throat doctors, speech pathologists, singing voice specialists like myself, singing teachers, voice specialising physiotherapists, you name it. Anyone who cares for the voice, then they are a part of the association. And look, I've actually got a very, very special piece of information, some news that I'm dying to give you, but I will give it to you next week. I can't let the cat out of the bag just yet. It's not appropriate to. Ooh, the suspense, the mystery. Come and join in the live show next week, and I will tell you some very, very interesting news about the Australian Voice Association and my involvement therein, and I will tell you all about that next week. After I've been down to Adelaide. Also, next week, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, as many of you know, I release, for the vast majority of this year, I was keeping up with a 3-day schedule a 3-video schedule a week. None of that didn't sound right to me. I hope you're figuring out what I'm trying to say. I was releasing 3 new videos a week. There I go, I got it. we've scaled that back while I'm writing and developing the online singing course that I know many of you are really keen to get your hands on and sink your teeth into, and you'll be able to do that in the new year. But in order to write that, I've had to scale back my my uploads to YouTube, particularly of my the pre-record, the fully scripted, researched videos. I've had to scale that right back to 1 per month. And next Wednesday, so not this Wednesday, not what will be, was that the 31st of October, not Halloween, but the next Wednesday, I will be releasing a new video, and I'll be keen for you all to get into that. We're going to be looking at the pentatonic scale during that video, so I hope you can all join in and watch that video. I'll remind you again next week, because now that they don't come as frequently, I think it's understandable that we'd kind of be not looking out for it. So I'll make sure I remind you again. And also, here's a heads up, for the video of December, I have got a new big video coming out. There's continued to be, I think, some confusion online, especially here on YouTube, about voice classification and how to find your voice type and your high note and your low note. So I am making and releasing another new, we do these big videos where I spend extra dollars on the design and the B-roll, and this one we're putting a worksheet with it. It's all free as always, but it's coming out in December, and I'm hoping you're going to love it. And so there's certainly these regular uploads are continuing, just not at the same 3 new videos a week. Of course, we've been doing the online live hangouts together every week, but just not the pre-scripted ones. And also, just a reminder to those of you who haven't joined in yet, come and join us in the Facebook group over at Voice Essentials Community. If you type in Voice Essentials Community into your Facebook app, you'll be able to find us, and just ask to join, request to join, and you'll be submitted straight through. Make sure you watch the video and read the group rules, because we're really developing a really strong culture around support and encouragement, and we would want you to participate in that manner. And so I hope you can do that. And a shout out to all of those of you who are already in that group and participating. It has been a lot of fun, and I can't keep up with it all. There's just that much activity going on. And so I try to dive in there every now and then to participate and make sure that everything's running smoothly, and it is. So that's all good as well. Today we are going to be talking about. This is really just a thought bubble, everyone, and I hope that then doesn't come across as clickbaity. But I want to talk about this concept of fact-based learning, fact-based pedagogy versus evidence-based learning. And the reason I put it out to you as a thought bubble is because I really haven't done an in-depth study or research into this. It's just something that I wanted to share with you that I've just had over the last, 12 months or so, just a feeling of disquiet and dissatisfaction around a terminology that I have personally used a lot, and I see it used a lot on YouTube. It's sort of become a part of the social proofing vernacular that is fact-based. And so if someone, let's just own and ground it. As I said, I have used this language before myself, and so when I've used it, I've always used it on the basis of, hey, one of the things that I strive for here on the Voice Essentials channel, and as a part of all of what I do here in this private teaching studio and anything that I release, I seek to make sure that it is fact-based. Now, for the last 12 months, despite the fact that I've been continuing to use that sort of vernacular, that turn of phrase, it's not sitting comfortably with me any longer. Let me share with you why. The term fact, it it has a very immovable, unchangeable, unquestionable sort of feel to it. Now, this may just purely boil down to semantics, but when we talk about facts, there is a fact, for example, around gravity. You know, what goes up must come down. But there is plenty of evidence to suggest that if you get outside the laws of gravity, get outside of our atmosphere, that they sort of no longer apply. But yet the fact of gravity still exists, and we all know if you sadly choose to jump off a building, that you will hit the ground. And so there is a certain thing about facts. One of the challenges of the learn to sing space, and as a result, the teach to sing space, for those of us in the space who are singing teachers, is when we talk about fact-based learning, fact-based teaching, I should say, we have to be careful to account for the fact that this is an ever-evolving space. What I understood to be fact when I started teaching over 20 years ago, do you know what? It's no longer regarded as fact. And so this is why I'm uncomfortable, and forgive me for sort of mumbling my way through this, because I really am just talking it out as I'm thinking about it. This idea of, I don't want to any longer here on the channel feel like I need to sort of pitch a flag in the sand and say, okay, we're pitching our tent and we're going to say we're fact-based, because what is fact today may not prove to be fact tomorrow, because we continue to learn so much new stuff around our the understanding of voice, how it mechanically works, the resonance. We used to think, for example, here's a thing. We used to think that the arytenoid cartilage would sit on top of the cricoid cartilage and it would move. We now know, for example, that it sort of sits like a rider on a horse. And so even our understandings, not just around the new stuff like the resonance, but even the mechanics, there's so much that we don't yet know and understand, that we really are on the cusp of new understandings. And that even those sort of new understandings takes time to filter down from academia, from research, down into, for ones like myself. I mean, I've got my areas of research that I'm participating in, and an area that I'm focused on at the moment is kinesthetic awareness, and I'm presenting at national levels around that. But there's so much more about voice that, other people are on the cutting edge of, and it will take a while for it to filter down into text and go through the peer review stuff and all that. So I've been sort of playing around with an alternative term, which I think is a little bit more open. It has a little bit more breathability, and I'm going to do my best over, into, for the rest of 2018 and into 2019 to maybe start using the term evidence-based learning. And I love the word. It was actually a student who introduced me to this turn of phrase. You may well be already familiar with it, but certainly for me it really caught my ear when my student said it. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and we got talking about it. And she comes from a medical field, and she was referring to it as evidence-based learning. And in preparation for today, I was looking at just doing a quick online search. And to be honest with you, I'm never a big fan of Wikipedia. But that being said, I did find this definition on Wikipedia, and it reads: evidence-based practice is an interdisciplinary approach to clinical practice that has been gaining ground following its formal introduction in 1992. It started in medicine as evidence-based medicines and spread to allied health professions, educational fields, and others. Evidence-based practice is traditionally defined in terms of three-legged stool, integrating three basic principles. One, the best available research evidence bearing on whether and why a treatment works. Two, clinical expertise, clinical judgment, and experience to rapidly identify each patient's unique health state and diagnosis, their individual risks, and benefits of potential interventions. And three, client preferences and values. Now, as I say, I'm not the biggest fan of Wikipedia, but that's a pretty good definition of what I'm wanting to angle at, because if you were watching the show last week, you'll have heard Michelle and I think we referenced it during the show. We certainly talked about it at some point, whether it might have been off camera, but we're talking about the fact that she was mentioning that she'd seen a singing teacher, or a YouTube singing teacher, who's putting themselves forward as an expert. She couldn't remember who, and even if she could, we weren't going to mention names. But she was saying that she had seen a YouTube singing teacher doing a reaction video to another singing teacher teaching a singer. And I part of that I have a real problem with that, I'll be honest. Because, and when I think we talked about the fact that, when you look in vicariously, is that the right word? Vicariously? No, it's not. That vicarious is not the right word. When you peep into a space, I can't think of the word. Let me know in the chat, everyone, and let me know what you're thinking about, what this word could be. It's when you look into a space. Anywho, when you do that, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what language has been built up. You don't know what previous experience has been had. You're literally looking at a 2D representation of what's been happening, and so you're taking for fact what you're seeing as this person making comment, and yet you're missing a lot of the evidence. And so, for example, when it says number 2, let's go back to it here. When it says number 2, clinical expertise, clinical judgment, and experience to rapidly identify each patient's unique health state and diagnosis, their individual risks and benefits of potential interventions, and number 3, client preferences and values. When we talk about evidence-based teaching, I think that really sums it up. It says, hey, we've got to, there may well be a whole range of facts, but the evidence in some ways kind of usurps and betters the facts by taking on some values that and placing some parameters and frameworks around what's been going on. And so this idea of evidence-based practice, it has a, I don't know, it just feels better to me. I'm going to be keen to read some of your comments and see what you're all thinking about that, because I really don't want us to ever become so arrogant here at Voice Essentials, hand on heart, for myself and for you as the community, to be thinking to yourself that this, that we're fact-based and so we're better. Again, what is fact-based today will not be fact-based tomorrow. We continue to learn at such a pace, and yet we can, I think, refer to ourselves as evidence-based. And that's, I think we're going to start using that terminology a little bit more here on the channel, because I'm a great believer in research, as you know. I'm a great believer in morphing and developing here at the studio and here on the channel, and taking on board the new and the best information that we have access to. but I never want us to blinker ourselves to think we've arrived. And that's kind of, I guess, where I'm at with the idea of fact-based. It sort of sounds like, yeah, we've arrived and I'm the expert, and we don't want to be in that sort of place. We want to make sure that we continue to develop, we continue to learn, and me first and foremost, as the person that's uploading, the vast majority of the information. And I'm hoping that we continue to get the guests on. I'm going to constantly be curating our guests to ensure that they too are of that same ilk. And I think we can really say that of every single person we've had here on the channel as a guest, that's been the case. So there you go. There's some thoughts. Again, it's a thought bubble. It's, I'll be keen to have people, come back to me as thinking I'm just, making a mole out of, a mountain out of a molehill for semantics. But nonetheless, I hope it just continues to build into what we're trying to do here on the channel. I do want to do some Q&A, and super keen to do that today. We didn't get a chance to do any Q&A last week, and so I'm really keen to do that. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Okay, so I'm going to jump over here. Now, let's stay with me. Who have we got? So we've got a whole heap of people in the live chat today. G'day, Lucas, Matt, Tito, Andre, Once and Future King, Michelle, Araquah, Tortilla Miracle. Oh, that's right. I think I mentioned I liked your name. Jamie A, Brotherly Gaming, Angela, and Yahui, and of course we've got Linda taking all of our questions, and we've got some good questions going on here today. So, Sick One, please help Dr. No. I feel like my voice has no personality. Can you help? It feels like it's just there. Yeah, I think that's not an unusual thing, Sick One, because what can happen, and it really comes down to developing, realizing that your singing is more than just, melody and lyric. Singing is about communication. And even as I'm talking with you now, my communication is not simply I'm going to talk to you and it's going to be monotone and it's all going to sound the same, and I'm not really going to waver my tonality very much. It's going to be very monotone, and if I did this for the rest of the hangout today, you'd all be clicking off because it would be so boring. There's got to be more to how I'm delivering my communication. And so not only does that come down to sort of the way my voice moves in the landscape, and sometimes I go up and sometimes I come down, but it also comes down to dynamic and the way I use breath to express emotion. And all of these aspects form into developing an emotive state around your singing, as well as your speaking. And so I would be encouraging you, Sick One, to go and have a look at thinking about breathy singing, ambient singing, the way the voice starts a phrase, what's called onsets. You might even like to have a look at your offsets, the way the voice finishes a phrase. And I've got a number of videos over on the channel that I really encourage you to go and have a look at. And if you type in breathy singing into my channel, excuse me, there's my lunch. Just wanting to repeat on me. If you go and type in breathy singing, that'll be a good place to start. And from memory, it's the one with, who's saying, "Happy birthday, Mr. President?" Marilyn Monroe. She is on the thumbnail for that video, so go and check that out. Andre is asking, how can we be more engaging with an audience if we are feeling nervous during a performance? Good question, Andre. Performance anxiety is a thing. It's a very real thing for the vast majority of performers. Of course, there are those singers who claim that they don't experience any performance anxiety. I question that they've never experienced performance anxiety, but nonetheless, some certainly. What is true is some people experience it to a far greater level than others. Again, Andre, you can check out a video. It's not a video that has received a lot of views. You can add to the views by watching the video on performance anxiety on the channel, and talk about stage fright and those sorts of things. Can I encourage you, Andre, always remember, and this can be helpful in managing your performance anxiety, always remember your audience is there for them. They are not there for you. Yeah? And in fact, you as a performer need to be there for your audience, for them, not for you. Yeah? And so audiences are very selfish creatures, appropriately so. And so it's important that when you go and you perform, that you remember the orientation. Who is this about? It is not about the performer. It is about the audience. And so when you engage with the audience, always remember that they are thinking very positively towards you. They want you to do well. Why? Because that's a selfish motivation. Yeah, unfortunately, there are people in the world where their motivation would be to see you bomb and completely, have a shocker. But the vast majority of people are really putting out positive thoughts to you because they want you to do well, so they get given a good performance. Always remember that, and that'll, in part, help with some of the performance anxiety perhaps that you're experiencing. Matt has asked, do you know any more bass singing pedagogues? I enjoyed hearing Dan Minton and would like to hear input from others. Yeah, actually, Dan is one of the few, in fact, I think he's the only bass vocal pedagogue specialist that I know internationally. Matt, there are more out there. I'm certain of it, but he is very active on Facebook and those sorts of things, which is how I met Dan. So I can't advise beyond him, I'm afraid, Matt. But it was good of Dan to come and join us. Lucas Fisher, how would I isolate my voice into a fach? I am either a tenor or a high baritone, but I can't quite tell if my voice has a light or a dark or dramatic colour. Some of that can be fed back to you by a singing teacher, someone who's qualified to do that role. Lucas, I would also encourage you to just hold on tight. I've got this new video coming out in December. I think it goes live Wednesday, December 4th. I think that's the right date. Don't quote me. It's the first Wednesday of December, and so keep an eye out for that. And it's really going to step you through how to identify your basic voice type. Now, I'm very careful here. It's not the Fach system. We talk about it in the video. The Fach system, the German way of voice classification. But look, there are 29 classifications within the German Fach system. So and for us as contemporary vocalists, it's pretty much unnecessary to classify your voice to that degree. Most uses in contemporary, the furthest you really need to go is to the 6 basic voice types: bass, baritone, tenor, alto, mezzo, and soprano. Wait for the video, Lucas. I'm sorry to put your brakes on there, but can I also say to you, Lucas, please don't get hung up on it. I know it's helpful for some scenarios like ensemble singing, singing in a community choir, even for if you're a part of a church worship team, it can be helpful. But generally, you only need to know those 6 basic types. I need some water. Linda, you're doing an awesome job with grabbing all of these questions today. Thank you. Do you have any tips on how to sing. This is brotherly gaming. Do you have any tips on how to sing high notes? My voice is cracking because of puberty. Well, in that case, brotherly gaming, thank you for noting your age with that, which would mean I would dare say you're around about anywhere between the age of 13 to 15. You might be slightly younger and you might be slightly older than that, but that's generally the age. Can I encourage you, brotherly gaming, that you probably need to just cool your heels a little. Don't worry about the high notes at your age. Your vocal range during puberty contracts. It actually comes in, and then as the voice emerges into its emerging adult voice, it'll spread back out again. And I really encourage young people who are moving through puberty to do so under the guidance of a good singing teacher who can help to, just guide the voice through that process. And so certainly there are videos on the channel, Brotherly Gaming, about singing high notes. I've got a number of videos on that subject actually. But I would encourage you first and foremost to watch the video on voice cracks. It's actually called voice cracks from memory, but it's about puberty. It's about the transitioning voice, the mutating voice, and the voice going through puberty. And I'd encourage you to watch that first. And then I'd also encourage you to just hold off the high notes just for a short period of time. I know when you're young, you feel like everything's got to happen yesterday. Trust me, you have time. So just chill out, wait for a bit, and the voice will emerge and be all the better for the fact that you've been looking after it during puberty. And Jamie A, can you be dogmatic about any teaching? I think that's probably probably more a rhetorical question, Jamie. And I don't think you can. I don't think you can be rhetorical. Yes, you can be rhetorical. I don't think you can be dogmatic about any teaching because, life moves at a pace. And if, we are learning at an exponential speed as a human race. And so I think we have to be I think the word dogmatic actually can be easily exchanged with the word arrogant. Can we be arrogant about any teaching? Fawimuchi, does voice type really matter when it comes to singing and developing the voice? I think I just answered that question a little bit earlier. I'm not sold on the fact that it does. It has its place. We need to acknowledge it has its place, but I'm always super keen to see everyone embracing their unique individual sound, especially if you are keen to really develop a solo voice. Don't get hung up on, your voice type. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if you to ask, 10 celebrity singers, your favorite singers, and say, what's your voice type? I reckon the percentage would be really high. I'd hazard a guess the percentage would be really high on the amount of those, voices that you think are awesome who don't actually know what their voice type is. And so, don't get hung up on it. And I think that's what Fahamuchi is getting at. We're going to only do 2 more questions, Linda, the 2 that you've got written here. And then we're going to call it a day. Is Once and a Future King, is carrying a lot of weight, vocal weight, a good thing for a baritone, or is the goal to eliminate that weight and make your singing more floaty, especially at the top register? Oh, that's a good question. Do you know what? It all depends on the repertoire. It all depends on what is the piece requiring. It's all about developing choice for voice, and because if you haven't developed the skills and the tools and the choices into your voice that then you're restricted in that very first question that, who was it that asked? It was Sikwan that asked about the personality and what have you. We were talking about being able to make choices around emotive singing. And if you don't have that capacity, if you haven't developed the capacity to add breath or take breath away, add focus or take focus away, or apply, different onsets and offsets. If you haven't developed those skills, then you can't. You're going to be you're going to be found wanting in your ability to emotively express. And so when it comes then to talking about, well, what does a baritone voice need? What does a tenor voice need? It needs what the song needs. And so if you are repertoire focused, if you are communication focused, all of your answers are found in that. And so when I'm thinking about my vocal kit bag, then I'm looking to develop, add more tools to my kit bag. I want to have more tools. And I think you could probably spend a lifetime trying to develop and exercise those tools so that you've always got them ready to go. So I don't know whether it's about do you or don't you add vocal weight? Yes, you do. But equally, you need to be able to take the vocal weight away and sing more floaty at the top of the register. So again, once and future king, focus in on the repertoire, and that'll give you your answers. Abhishek gets the last question for today. I wonder if I can afford your course from Nepal. Okay. I didn't realize that was going to be the last question, but there you go. Can you afford the course? Well, I don't know what the exchange rate for the exercise CDs are, Abhishek. I certainly hope you can afford them. There's a couple of free downloads there, and look, it would be wonderful if I could afford to give all of this away for free. I can't, but it is part of the reason why I do give you guys access to the free online course. Abhishek, if you go to www.7daystoabettervoice.com, there's links in the description section of this video below. It's free. You can certainly do that online course. Look, my in-studio lessons do have an expense attached to them, which is why I'm developing this online course for you guys to be able to do, and that'll come out in the new year. And you can download the exercise CDs, the collections, Voice Essentials 1 and 2, and hopefully that's of help to you as you continue to develop your voice. Abhishek, well, there you go. That has been, wow, we've gone 40 minutes, and it has been a great day to hang out with you guys. I know many of you are still finishing your weekend. Hey, give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed our hangout today. Very much hope that we can see each other again next Monday for the usual hangout. When again, we're going to have Dr. Shannon Coates, and we're going to be talking about all things voice with her, and having a lot of fun, and she'll be staying up nice and late to join us, so it's going to be good to hang out with her. But as always, make sure, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If learning to sing is your thing, subscribe, ring the white bell icon, and so that you don't ever miss a live hangout or one of the monthly uploads. We're going to go back to a more regular schedule once we sort of get the online course up and running, and certainly hoping to do that in 2019. I very much look forward to seeing you all next week, but until then, I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see you again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing.